Hi, everybody. It is Monday, January 6th, 2025. Today, Congress will meet to certify the Electoral College landslide accomplished by Donald Trump and the American people on November 5th. Now, that's something that seemed literally impossible in the aftermath of January 6th, 2021. It is, as we have often said, the big chance for a rebirth of this nation, something which nations in history, which have sunk so far down into apparent dark ages and collapse, rarely achieve. There are aspects of this rebirth which are truly miraculous. A spiritual awakening based in optimism and renewing the American adventure of revolutionary discovery and a mission which, as Trump says, will lift all boats. Now, there are very good autopsies being conducted on the period we have just been through. David Samuels, for example, has a terrific piece in Tablet magazine called Rapid Onset Political Enlightenment, detailing the monstrous psyop and fantasy machine created by Barack Obama, which we have been bombarded with ever since the financial collapse of 2008. If reality had been operating, no one associated with that collapse would ever be in government or financial positions of importance again. Instead, they were promoted. Feeling they had put a giant lie over on the American people, they became feral, wanting to put more and more whoppers over on us, beating us up to believe them through the tools of social ostracism and cancel culture. Do you remember Joe Biden's discussion with Ashraf Ghani, the president of Afghanistan, as the Taliban were engaging in their blitzkrieg, conquering the country, as the American trained army turned and ran? Biden said that the big problem was a perception that the government was losing and, quote, there is a need, I emphasize, whether it is true or not, he said, there is a need to project a different picture. Biden has always played the Washington game of manipulation of perception rather than pursuit of truth. In fact, he told my husband in New Hampshire in 1988 that Lyndon LaRouche's big problem was that he believed that the American people were smarter than they actually are. This week, we'll see a continuation of the PSYOPs in the hopes that this movement will get distracted by the crazy things they can throw at us given their intact machinery. It has started today with Biden taking to the pages of the Washington Post to repeat their January 6th lying narrative about an insurrection in the Capitol which almost destroyed the Republic. It is quite literally an insane narrative, completely fabricated and divorced from reality. What occurred on January 6th was a government-controlled riot with deliberately delayed National Guard response caused by Nancy Pelosi and her Pentagon toadies. It was the last stage of a coup Joe Biden and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and George Soros and the British and this whole British-directed enterprise waged against Trump, and it involved the summer BLM riots, the 2020 election, the COVID obedience exercise, and the need to dedicate the government of the United States to a, quote, whole of government effort to destroy Donald Trump and his political movement. In reviewing it, lawyer and constitutional scholar Alan Dershowitz said over the weekend, what happened here with the lawfare against Donald Trump and his movement was worse than what Joseph Stalin did. Stalin's henchman, Lavrentiy Beria, said famously, show me the man and I'll show you the crime. Now, that implies a search of the law books together with a full profiling of human weaknesses and entrapment to frame someone for prosecution using extant law, and in most cases, in Stalin's regime, that meant execution. Instead, here, In instance after instance, Dershowitz said, the Trump prosecutions were created out of whole cloth. They simply made up the crimes which were never in the law books. And they got cowering and corrupted judges to go along with them as the new socially acceptable norm for what was once the best justice system in the world. That justice system always portrays Lady Justice as politically blindfolded. On Friday, they will continue their show with the sentencing of Trump in the bogus New York case. Again, a spectacle without ultimate meaning, since this atrocity also will be reversed by a higher court if justice is to survive in our republic. Now, they are a dying and very wounded beast, and they will continue to lash out. Assassination by drone has become a very hot topic in security circles, and the need to take that into account for the inauguration is both urgent and obvious. We need Trump's national security people in there now. We have to remain serene, tough, and focused on the future. There must be a reckoning with this past. The people who did this must be held to account, but not in some Old Testament sense. It means we have to restore the Constitution and its broad understanding among the American people. And we have to restore the understanding of where this Constitution came from in the great philosophical movements which gave birth to it. The knowledge of those principles developed by the long Platonic tradition, which led to Gottfried Leibniz and from there to our founders, is totally lacking in our nation today. Instead, people actually have adopted the idea that the Enlightenment birthed the Constitution, when the Enlightenment and British free trade were and are our deepest enemies. Across the world, not just here, old regimes are dying a death based on the entropic principles by which they have lived. You cannot have an economy without abundant and energy-dense sources of fuel. You cannot have vibrant and growing middle and working classes and families rearing and having lots of children unless you are producing things on a national mission to create new wealth and new discoveries for the human race. Bruce Director covered this in his class for Promethean Action on Saturday, which I urge you to look at. He talked about how Kennedy's space mission did that for the United States in a long period of growth in our economy. Trump's program with Artemis and other such missions into space will have a similar impact. New discoveries, new means of doing things, new products. Bruce also covered the mindset and the type of thinking we need to focus on now in order not to be drawn down the rabbit holes and traps our enemies are trying to set for our thinking in the ever-present news cycle. Most of the economies of Europe, led by the anti-nuclear and green German nation, are finding out this truth in a gigantic industrial and manufacturing collapse. The governments of both France and Germany have collapsed, and populist movements, seeing the revolution underway in the United States, are preparing to fill the breach. It's almost like the grand events in Europe which took place after our first revolution. The most significant issue in these European dynamics concern ending the war in Ukraine, censorship, perverse sexualization of children and migrant crime, and failing economies. In Great Britain, the new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has already lost all support in the population. And Elon Musk, looking at the cover-ups of child rape cases there and a government which puts people in jail for speech, has called for a popular uprising against this tyrannical government. That would be a very good thing to happen at this point. It is also all over the press this morning that Justin Trudeau is about to resign in Canada. He, of course, lost all credibility within his population for his fascist, really totalitarian action against the truckers' strike. Now, the next few weeks must be focused on getting Trump's government into place. All of it. but particularly the national security appointments in the Pentagon, the CIA, Homeland Security, the FBI, and the Justice Department. The potential no votes in the Senate are there, but they're hiding. They adopted a stance of being quiet after MAGA mobilized when they expressed their disappointments and opposition as Trump rolled these appointments out. Our nation remains under attack from an imperial ideology totally foreign to our founding principles and much of our experience if we actually know our history. It is imperative that we move ruthlessly to restore the Constitution and the pursuit of truth, rather than the wilderness of mirrors and lies we have just thrown aside. Sign our petition over a Promethean PAC to get these appointments done now. Get others to sign it. It will be delivered to the Senate as the signatures mount. Susan Kokinda will be back with you on Wednesday for the midweek brief, and I'll see you again on Saturday to wrap up the week.
Thanks for watching. Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter at prometheanaction.com.